Great, thanks.
I
I had the time in this morning. So your case.
This is. So I'm hoping they get it before like 5.
We do have a point. Until.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I'll let you take it.
Yeah. I'm not big on the stage.
All right, let's call the Region 2 Opioid Abatement Council meeting to order. It is January 23rd, 2025. It is 2 p.m. We are here at the wonderful behavioral health Longview building to have our meeting. Let's move right to call to order. We do have 4.
We got, Mayor Pro Tem makes an online too.
Okay, so we do have a quorum of voting members. Certainly any of our subject matter or technical advisory folks, please join us. So we appreciate all of your feedback and thoughts. Wonderful. So we do have Mayor Pro Tem Mason on. So we have 5 of the voting members. Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is public comment. Would there be anybody that'd like to share public comment to the council? Anybody online? Not seeing or hearing anything, we'll close public comment. Next item on the agenda is approval of December 5th, 2024 meeting minutes. If you recall, that was a very, very productive meeting that lasted nearly 3 hours. It's been a while, but any discussion on the minutes or motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation regarding the minutes? Hearing none, does anybody oppose that motion? Motion passes unanimously. All right, agenda item 4. I was reading through the bylaws as I should probably be doing periodically as your chair, and noticed that in the bylaws, it says on the January meeting of every year, we are supposed to identify our officers for that year. If you recall, we did not do that last year. That's something we missed. I missed all of them. So we do at least have to go through the exercise of appointing a chair, vice chair, and secretary for 2025. So I will open that up for conversation.
Unless it's other stated, unless there's other folks who are burning desire, maybe unless people change it, maybe we can just make a motion to keep as people as is, unless there's a brave desire to change that and keep the positions and just vote that in and continue as is. I make that motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and second, if I heard it, to keep the chair, vice chair, and secretary as is. And I'm just making sure, Mayor Pro Tem Mason, you're hearing us loud and clear, just
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
wonderful. Do you have any comment on that proposed?
No comment. Yeah.
Cool. Any other discussion on that? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make it known that I may be shifting away from this in mid-year, so if we could either talk about the secretary change at that time, or unless Brian and Cindy and I had a little bit of a conversation about it here, essentially her being able to take over at that time. But unless Brian would have an interest in changing on being secretary now, or I'm happy to do it till that time.
Thank you.
I'm open to, I'm open to either way, but maybe it makes sense just to transition then. And then we can have that discussion then. So I think either way, I feel that's really good about that. So I just appreciate that you're on this time.
I'm fine with that, unless Brian wants to take over now.
No, all good.
Okay. All right.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Well, since we're all good, does anybody oppose the motion retaining the chair, vice chair, and secretary as is for 2025? See, hearing none, that passes unanimously. Okay, we have 3 items here under financial. So I'm going to turn it over to our financial experts. Carol.
Great. So this was my last meeting as the fiscal person. So I wanted to introduce Janelle Kodos, who is in the audience today, and she will be taking over that role for the council. So she'll become a familiar face.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I have a moment?
You may have a moment.
I just first like to thank Carol for decades of service to the county. And having exemplary track records. We have, I think, over 40 years of no dings, but perfect scores on all of our external audits, which is really unheard of. So the county has a very stellar record for financial management and audits, and I think a lot of us, to really all of you are doing it. And I know, Carol, that's a really big deal for you, and you have jumped in serving on this council with both feet and attends all of the monthly meetings, and you have been really engaged in helping us keep all of the little pieces, financial pieces, which has been something we've been trying to figure out navigating. You've been really instrumental and so valuable to working with all of us, and I look forward to our new partners, and thank you for stepping up, because we've been fast moving, but I just want to my heartfelt gratitude, and I wish you all the best and happy retirement.
Thank you. It's certainly been interesting being part of something on the ground floor and seeing it grow and develop and hopefully make a difference in people's lives. So it's been quite a journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you.
I would like to piggyback on the commissioner. When folks, anytime you're creating something and you're new and you're looking at, okay, what are we doing and how are we gonna do this? And I was asked to be chair, which was very, very exciting, but this was the scary part for me. Carol jumped right in, put together the reports, put everything exactly how we needed it, attends every one of those monthly meetings at noon, and comes back with the information, puts it in the charts. The COAC, the Colorado Opioid Abatement Council, has given us kudos on how we report, the way we report, and how transparent we are in the report. And that's all because of Carol. So I give a heartfelt thank you, gratitude to Carol for setting the foundation on all of our financial pieces, which is so important. You see nationally, where some ROACs aren't near as transparent or not as forthcoming or as effective as we are. So a lot of that to you, and congratulations on an amazing career. And thank you for all you've done for the Region 2 ROAC, and you will be missed. But congratulations on your upcoming.
Well, thank you very much.
I would like to just say, I felt so at ease in knowing that you had our backs, you had those numbers correct. It just made it that much easier to be able to facilitate knowing you had those numbers right. And it just, thank you so much. It's always been spot on.
So with that, let's get into financial reporting. December 31st, 2024 marked the end of the council's first 2-year funding cycle. And that's how the state looks at it, in a 2-year cycle. So we have a couple of responsibilities at year end. And the first is to report the expenditures for the year to the COAC. And it's done through a portal of some software. And the expenditures, we report the vendor's name or grantee's name, and also a description of what service was provided. And that information becomes part of the public database. It's looked at nationally, so it's pretty important. And I did get Tom's help in wording the descriptions of the services so that we would be sure to have the right terminology in there. So thank you for that, Tom. And I will get that entered into the system pretty soon. And then the second thing we have to do is roll forward our unspent balance into the next year's plan. So what you have here is the 23 and 24 report that shows revenues and expenditures and also the roll forward. So if you look at the far right-hand column, you'll see a couple of roll forward revenue items. And these are items, this is revenue that the council has and hasn't allocated for any purpose. So the first is the interest on the unspent funds, and it's pretty considerable. So that's the $151,000. And then the second is this little amount that came to us outside of the state process that we're supposed to spend. So in total, there's 153.9 in monies that this council can spend for any approved purpose. It still has to be something on that Exhibit E. We can't just use it for other things. So that's the revenue side. And then on the expenditure side, you'll see some little tiny dollar amounts, and we can pretty much ignore them, the $53 and the $500, that gets rolled forward. But also we have the $200,000, and what that is, it's the second payment to Harvest Farms. All of our grantees, with the exception of Harvest Farms, have received their second payment on their grant agreement. And that was just a timing thing. Their agreement got signed last, so their 6-month report actually didn't hit until this month. So we rolled that forward. And then also the number, the 464 is for admin costs. And as you know, this council has been pretty conservative and pretty good stewards of their admin costs. A lot of the other councils have facilitators or full-time staff that they charge to admin. And, you know, we've had, Tom's been such a great facilitator. We haven't needed those outside folks. So that's really saved a lot of money for this group. So in total, we're rolling forward the 665, 397. So any questions about that, about expenditures and roll forward? Does that make sense to you based on what you know? Okay. And then I would like to, Amanda, if you can go to the 2025. Keep going. There we go. Okay. So this is the report for January through January 15th of 2025. And Trustee Youngman was nice enough to point out to me that I say as of 1/15/2024, that's actually 1/15/2025. So there you go. Everybody makes mistakes. That's
1 in 40 years.
yeah. It's the only one I've ever done. It never happens. So I want to go through this a little bit so that you understand what you have to allocate and deal with this year. First of all, you'll see the settlement funds of the 2.8, and that's the amount that you've been working with in allocating between those approved uses, right? And then below that, you'll see the roll forward funds, that's 665 from the previous financial statement. So that gives us a total of, and then there's also the investments, the interest, and the that weird thing that didn't go through the state, the $2,000. So anyway, so that shows what we have to work with. If you look at that budget, that 3.468, and then below you'll see the expenditures by the categories that you have selected, the estimated expenditures. And the one thing that's a little odd is there's that extra $200,000, and that's that roll forward for Harvest Farms. But if you scroll to the bottom here, just a little bit, there we go. What's highlighted in yellow is 118,000. So this group wanted to roll forward the admin into next year's admin, right? That was sort of what everybody wanted. But the COAC just made a new ruling like 2 weeks ago that you can only roll forward an amount up to 10% of the approved uses. You're limited. So that means that we have 118,600 that needs to be allocated to these other uses, taken out of admin and put elsewhere. So that's one of the things for the group to decide is where that goes. Does that sort of make sense? Okay, good. So that's it for the financial piece there. And then next, that's that. So do we need maybe a motion? I think we do need a motion to accept the 2024 financial.
The motion to accept the 2024 budget.
I'll second that.
Any further conversation? And that was the financial report, right?
Financial
Okay.
report.
Any further conversation? Anybody oppose the motion? That passes unanimously. I have to say, Carol, that was so confusing, the 118 You made it so it wasn't. Thank you. So the way you put it was, I could not have done that if it's that justice as you did. That is a little. And that, so everyone knows, item 6, that's what we'll talk about. What do we want to do with the 118,600? Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Remind me, because I know sometimes we're getting emails. Did that change in that policy from the COAC get sent to the entire council, or just to you when need to be get that so that everyone has that? Did you, I don't remember who was on that, you know?
That, I think, was just to me, because I was working with Jack at the
Yeah.
state, trying to roll our amount forward, and then he was like, oh, wait, you can't roll that forward, we've got a new
Rule.
decision, yeah.
So is there, have they sent the, formal document out on that, or did he just say that?
He said that, I believe, in an email. I don't know that there's any formal thing. We might be the only ROAC that's facing that situation because we didn't spend as much for admin as others. And the money's not lost, it's just that it can't be used for admin. It needs to be used for the
Yeah.
other uses.
I just thought it would be nice just to read it too, I know you have, but just so we have it kind of for. We understand and I look over to our district attorney, because I know he serves on the COAC. Any discussion on that, everyone accused that has this issue, and I'm just curious if I might ask that question since he's on.
No, we haven't had a meeting in a couple months. That doesn't mean quite, I think that's just quarterly if I'm not mistaken, so that hasn't come up.
Okay, so do you know about this change, or is that just from?
Definitely not.
Okay, thank you.
I just wonder, yeah, if there is other changes that we need to be aware of, you know, going into the new year, you would think they would have made that known to us before now.
Yeah, I think it only came up for us and it just came up recently, so I think they have a hard time thinking ahead of what might happen because it's such a new program.
Okay. Thank you, Carol.
So the second thing under financial is the admin costs for July through December of 2024. So these are the costs that the county has incurred because it's donating the labor for to act as fiscal agent. And you know, as I meant, the total is pretty low compared to what others are spending on admin. And of course, this doesn't go, there are names here, but this doesn't go to any of the people that are named. It just goes back to the county to reimburse the county for the employee's time. So this will be charged to 2025 because the state wants everything reported on a cash basis when you actually, so we'll reimburse the county in 2025 and it'll show up on your 2025 expenditure report.
So do you need a motion to approve the
Yes.
administrative costs for what was it, June or July through December 31st, 2024? I move to approve the presented administrative costs. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation on administrative costs?
I would just say, I appreciate the staff and your direction of the staff and their support of zoning council. I think it's really important and it's, you know, I'm hopeful that they're reporting everything. I know it's been said that maybe they're underreporting. I would just encourage report, you know, if we want to pay the staff that's helping us, it's really important. So thank you.
Okay, so the final financial item is approved authorization of a stipend for lived experience. So in January of last year, the ROAC approved a stipend for lived experience members that had attended over half the meetings in 2023. 23. So they attended in 23. They were given the stipend or offered the stipend in January of 24. So I'm here asking if you want to do that again. So that would be for meetings attended in 2024. And of our 3 lived experience members, 2 of them did accept the stipend and 1 did not.
I would make a motion that we approve the stipend to our lived experience council members again for 2024.
I'll second.
We have a motion and second supporting the stipend program for our lived experience. Is there any further conversation? Seeing none.
I do have a question. What category is that coming out of the administration?
It is.
category then? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't see it listed.
Good question.
So it will be on, we're reimbursing administrative costs every 6 months. So this will be paid in January and then reimbursed in July.
Oh, okay. So any further conversation on that? Hearing none. Anybody oppose this? Not, so that passes unanimously. Mayor Pro, Mason just posted a link. And does that link show that you can only carry over 10%?
Yes.
We don't hear you, Brian.
Yeah, can you hear me now? I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from the COAC Infrastructure Share Funding Opportunity document. I put a link in the Zoom chat there, but on page 5, it says administrative costs cannot exceed 10% of funding request of the applicant.
Yeah, I think the question was 10% of what? Is it 10% per year? Is it 10% over the lifetime, the whole 18 million? And they recently decided it was 10% in every 2-year funding cycle. I had kind of thought, well, you know, we have extra admin initially, and when we get towards the end, we may need more admin, but we can't really roll that forward.
That's good.
Yeah, and I was kind of confused by that too, actually, because just reading this document, it doesn't, I don't see where it says explicitly that there's a 2-year piece to that. So it might be worth maybe just clarifying that with Jack just to confirm. I don't want to, you know, just to make sure that we've got everything correct there.
Well, I appreciate you finding that document. Okay. Anything else on the financial?
Yep.
All right, good job. Thank you, Carol. Okay, now on item number 6 is regarding the opioid administration carry forward funds. So I see the 118,600. Liv, can you go to the wonderful, this is what staff put together. So I want to raise that where we would like to put the 118,600. Before we do that, we did receive a email from Rise Above Colorado. If you recall, Rise Above Colorado is working on that campaign with youth and are meeting with youth, all 3 of our youth groups from Estes Park, Thompson, and Pooter. And it was $100,000 first year to roll out that campaign. They would like to continue that into year 2. And they would cost $37,000 in year 2. So they asked if I would just bring that to the council. So I asked, just to put that in consideration with this, as we authorize or put the 118,600 into categories. And I can't remember, where was Rise Above Colorado, which category did they fit into? Was it prevention?
School-based.
School-based, oh, you're right, it would be school-based, thank you. Okay, so I open it up to thoughts and conversation.
I kind of recall and having that school-based, those 2 presentations with Rise Above and also CSU, that they were maybe not asking for everything that they needed at the time, even CSU does anybody recall that? That they, one of the school districts was needing, more education, that, bringing those people in to educate and they didn't have those funds or something?
I remember, I can't, we've got Dr. Nathan Briggs here. Would you mind coming up and sharing with us that? That's a great question.
CSU.
It was CSU. I can't remember if we addressed that or we haven't.
Yeah, I mean, what we did was we fit our budget into what was modeled up here. And so we can certainly deliver our scope of work with that funding. As far as Rise Above, I haven't had conversations with them. We could certainly do more with more funding, but
So you weren't limited, one of the districts weren't being limited because of the funding?
no.
Okay, so the 225. Okay.
Okay, I do remember something that was about Estes because there was some
Yeah.
kind of, it was Estes, school district and it was staff or program or capacity and you were, I think, waiting to hear back from them and you were, I know it caught both of our radars that.
So I think it was the staffing
Yeah.
issue up in Estes, so it didn't get initiated or something right away, and so it didn't. So they're kind of behind. I don't know. I just felt there was a little lack of maybe some funding piece to that too, as well as staffing, but I can't.
Maybe, so one of the challenges with Estes Park and some of the programming there is that they're limited in the staff that can actually implement the programs. And so there, that might be maybe conversations that maybe you've had with them as a district. But I think that would be more of a maybe an FTE or a staff issue for them as a district. And it wouldn't necessarily be anything that CSU would need funding for. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you're right, Rise Above Colorado considerably less. There, we look at 37,000 versus 100,000 for this year. Yes.
Oh, I'll make a motion to, place, because I think they had some confusion about when to apply.
They
and
did.
We're behind. So, my hope is that, that they're partnering with the co-responder, co-responder in the schools and the big, CSU so that there's not like another, that they're kind of leveraging resources. Right?
Yep.
And I think they had done that. So unless someone has a strong objection, like I think 37,000 to continue into next year seems reasonable. So I will make that motion to approve that. And that would go under G9, correct?
G9, yes.
G9.
We got a motion and a second
Correct.
to earmark $37,000 for Rise Above Colorado under G9 prevention, misuse for opioids for school-based youth-focused programs. Any further conversation?
I think it says.
All right, I'll ask the vote. Anybody oppose that? That passes unanimously. What's 118,000?
81,600.
Pardon?
81,600.
We still have $81,600. Would you like? Okay.
We can always move things around as
Yeah.
presented, right? If in categories like we did last time, even things up, so.
Can I make a motion then for this one,
Sure.
maybe think about this? Could we kind of put some of that leftover into the equity piece and we can move it back out of the equity piece?
Yeah.
So my motion, why we kind of digest this and think about it, so we're not just kind of maybe moving quick without having to think about what's the best way to leverage. Can we go ahead and just move that, the rest of that funding at $81,600 into the leftover funding and focus on equity, which is under B2, into that category.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second, but I heard it's the rest of the money that John said under B2 equity piece, the equity line item.
With the caveat that we might move it.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
some-
all,
Yes,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
understand.
Any further conversation with that motion?
And it can be even moved out of B2, correct? Doesn't have to stay within B2.
Correct, that's what Carol's saying.
I think we all need to kind of,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, no more further conversation. Anybody oppose that motion? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Let us go. All right. Now we're getting to grant administration, and I'm gonna turn that over to John, correct?
Most of it.
Most, all right.
There, we've got several forms. The pattern has been to get those approved each year. I think it was more important in the beginning because we were kind of inventing the wheel. These are basically the same as they've always been. We've made some tweaks and some improvements, especially in the grant agreement itself. We've had advice from the attorney's office on better ways to say things or label them, so to speak. But I might have changed the name by calling it the application scope of work and the application budget as opposed to proposals. That's how I labeled it on the agenda. So there's two of them. We send those both, and they haven't changed really at all. So there's not much to discuss there. What is attached to the first one on the scope of work, though, is the committee that's been working on performance measures. Ideally, we want to get performance measures into the agreements in the early stages, and I don't know if you want to speak to this, Jody or Jared, either way, about those. But my thought is before we get into the details is after they make their proposals, this committee could make recommendations as we're developing the actual draft contract for approval. Here's what we'd like you to put in there. We'll put them into the draft, then we can discuss it when you approve.
great point. We talked about that because, as you know, we had to give a little, for people in the room, just refresh ourselves. We had started a subcommittee, and then we had the Butler group that was working through another contract. And then this next cycle, we have pulled that out and not have it associated with the grantee, but with the administrative costs and using that as us, continuing that work with that, what was it?
75,000.
75,000, okay, almost close, I'm getting. And it's been a great process, and trustee Macy and I, Mayor Pro Tem Mason and I have been working on this along with Dr. Olson and many others in the Butler group. And so I believe we're looking at those today, and I think that you'll see these are pretty high level, but I also think as we looked we found our original goals. If you remember, we all voted on those first 2 days of the goals, and then some new goal suggestions. And we also want to make sure that it kind of respected and reflected what the work we have done in the grantees and some of the work that has been done, and that this new framework.
Goals and principles.
Principles did not exclude or make it difficult to continue with what we had already approved and we're looking at going forward. I think that you'll find this is really, I think a lot of our voices, but it also lines up with the John Hopkins indicators, the Osprey, kind of the national and the COAC recommendations. And so we're all kind of in alignment. I think we were already there. Wasn't anything we really had to squeeze in. We've really been in alignment all along. And I didn't get a chance to talk to Liv and Thomas, but we were in a meeting, Carol and everyone, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, where Colorado is kind of at the top for being in alignment and how the money's been spent. And I can try to get those copies of those. I bookmarked them Also looking at money that was not maybe spent for non-remediation, maybe kind of flagged as not spent in the right categories. 0 is finally a good number to beat. We were 0. Colorado was the only one that was 0%. So we have, across the whole state, we have been spending money appropriately. And so all of that to say, I think it would be prudent and wise to have these now. We're not etching them into granite, but to have this and continue the work. And because I know I'm being long-winded, but I'm trying to kind of summarize all this work, but to have this so they know that the objectives of, and we can look at these new goals, which are very similar to our old goals. If you remember, one of those first goals I was very passionate about is we're gonna save lives. Well, that's still kind of still in those goals. So I'm hoping that we can look at those and kind of approve, because I think they're ready for us to approve them as we continue to work on this process. So Dr. Olson, what have I missed?
I would just say, as a working group, we put these together as the commissioner indicated from a number of sources, including what the council has already worked on. What we're proposing to you are goals that the council could potentially adopt, as well as principles that the council would also consider and potentially adopt, or provide commentary for request changes of, and then we would take that back and accommodate that and bring it back to the council. But whatever the council approves as far as goals and principles, we will then take the next step from that and make recommendations to grantees about how they can demonstrate their alignment with those goals and those principles, and provide data and evaluation in accordance with that. That will give the council additional information and material to use for evaluation and decision-making in subsequent years.
And I don't know if we mentioned that also the, if you remember, Dr. Olson, we had approved that he could reach out and have conversations. We sent that letter, encouraged him, so they've already had feedback into this. And I don't know if we can take a moment, I don't know if this is, I thought about this at 4 AM, but the proposed goals, is that, it remind me of, is it also showing the old goals?
It does not, we did not include the goals from the whiteboard that I think we initially, that we reviewed in the committee in this document.
Yeah, I thought it might be nice to,
It says that its recommendations are built on the ROAX for initial year 1 objectives and as are listed here.
yeah, so I also thought it might be nice just to look at those, and I don't know if you saw that and said, do we all feel like excited or satisfied that we kind of met those first round goals? Would you, anyone, curious, we can ask if they what they thought about that, save lives through the harm reduction, and those were our goals that we had voted on that when we had all of the whiteboard and all that stuff. So I think just one, I'm curious.
I read through them and I feel like they are very much in line with what we originally talked about, and maybe have just maybe evolved a little bit, but also are still in alignment, but are stated, I think, succinctly here in a good way. I think makes it easier too for our applicants who are applying. They know what our goals are, they know what our principles are then, and they can make sure that their work aligns with all of that as well as us making sure that. I agree.
I want to give a hats off to the committee and all the work, because we need to be data driven. We need to have performance measures and be accountable. And when I look at the hard work, 2.5, 3 years, whatever it was, on those goals, yes, that's our North Star. That's what we're doing. And I think we're meeting all 4 goals. Is there more work to be done? Oh, absolutely. And they need to be looked at yearly and modified per conditions. And I also think we could take it a step further when we put together our annual report, that we highlight our goals, that this is what the work's all about. We didn't do that last year. I think, boy, that'd be nice to tie that in. So we can do that as well, but hats off. And I think this document is fantastic. And what's even, I think, more transparent and more collaborative, if you met with our grantees and got their feedback, rather than just saying, here it is. It's what, we got to hear from them. So that even makes this much more impactful.
Well, I would like to suggest, we didn't do this, like you said last year, just to kind of reframe every year.
We should.
Here, these were our goals,
Mhm.
like for the first time, and maybe we could put them side by side. And I think it's also good for the public to see
Absolutely.
that here was our first row of goals. I feel confident that we met those.
Yeah.
And here's some second goals, and then kind of show that progression. And I don't even know if they're listed on the website. I obviously, we've hit the ground running the last Christmas, but I think it would be great for the public to see that. And I feel good about this because I feel like we try to be inclusive and collaborative, and I appreciate Dr. Olson and Butler Group and everyone that's been involved with this, because I think it has been a very in-depth and robust. And oh, here's a great thing about the crosswalk. When I mentioned before, I wanted to make sure that what we have done in all the grantees, you can see that with our goals and our new goals, everyone fits somewhere under these. Now, some check more boxes, but I don't think that means that they're not, it's just their work is kind of been more broad, but I hope that I don't know, I'm pretty excited to see that it's still kind of, we're still kind of all in alignment. We don't have to really make any major adjustments.
Yeah, and certainly as grantees consider their work or apply for new funding, they can reallocate themselves where they see their work and make an argument for that. And it's our job to help facilitate that work.
And that's piggyback on that, Dr. Olson, is I think it's really important to have these very clear, so it helps the grantees. We don't want to set them up for failure, right? So as much as we can provide clarity of what we're looking for as far as goals, it just has to follow right to them. So I think it's good work.
I think to your point too, we just had a conversation about Rise Above Colorado and the efforts there. If we have this sitting there, if we decided not to grant that funding, we would only have one grantee in the space of go forward. That makes it more, I think, yes, we should, and we did the right thing. We have this sitting up there based upon our goals, understanding, boy, you only really have CSU prevention in that space. Putting Rise Above Colorado, a couple of that space doing that work. I think that drives our decision as well.
Yeah.
Well, and again, this has been a very, as Carol mentioned earlier, do you remember that first meeting? I know I pushed this really fast to get going. I think they thought the whole first meeting would be us talking, trying to figure out our structure and where we're going, and we were just boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
let's get the money. And we could have spent 2 years just trying to get to this spot.
Could have.
But we chose to kind of do this as we're evolving, and I know that's been a lot of work and a lot of how do I do this, but I really super pleased and thinking of the collaboration and partnership amongst all of us, but the robust conversations, and to see that you look at this and think about our goals and where we're going forward, we're just refining this and making this more transparent and accountable and clear and helpful, and we're trying to help the grantees that we're trying to help people we're saving lives. So I think kudos to you, Dr. Olson, and I think MJ's been involved back here. Thank you, MJ. And
Somebody from Butler Institute.
I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I in the back of my head. And so well done. Just thank you for the work. And I think this is a really good step forward. And I think I would like to make a motion for us to approve what's presented so that we can give this out before we start handing out applications process, whatever we're calling, that this is clear from the beginning. And like I said, I think if we can, if we need to adjust, but we're not chiseling this in granite, but I hope you all are, and no surprises, and you feel pretty good about it.
Did you want to touch on the principles too, since we?
Yeah. So the principles, I think, again, like we're trying to, and so, these should be pretty straightforward, but I think they kind of what we've been doing, but equity, we talked about that. I hope you read these. I don't want to, read them verbatim, evidence-based practices, but we also want to make sure, as you see the merging promising practices, there are some that maybe don't have as much evidence, data-driven, but they're emerging practices. We can talk about those a lot, but there are some things that have come that we don't want to exclude, but are, so that's was intentional to put that language in. And then really this holistic person-centered approaches, that, you know, we need to serve a person's health by addressing all of their needs, and emphasizing that, which I think that's resonates with most of us. Sustainability, we don't want to put money into something that's gonna be one and done. We want to have this sustainable kind of things. But some capital projects are still part of sustainability. They're not just one and done. Prevention, of course. We know how impactful and the great outcomes we've seen so far in that. And obviously, Osprey has a big focus, and that was on their list. And then comprehensive solutions, that, you know, that we're trying to solve, for the whole county and the whole, there's a lot of, it's a very complex thing what we're dealing with. And then community involvement, which we have, trying to give people, look at groups that have lived experience in local communities. And this is also kind of making sure, I think, that we're doing this countywide as well. This was kind of, if you can see that in there, making sure that we're kind of, and the comprehensive too, that we're, because that was important to me, that we're really trying to make sure we're reaching out the whole county and the rural areas.
Reflected in equity as well.
Yep, thank you. Yep, thank you for that. And then transparency and accountability, making sure decision making. And our grantees have been very transparent and accountable in how they spent, and we've had regular public reporting on outcomes, and I think we've been doing that. So those are the principles. Again, this was a multi-meeting discussion to come to this, and again, Butler Institute, thank you, Connie, and everyone, just well done. Very, I hear a lot of voices as I read through this again, and we presented this, I hear a lot of voices, and I think some of our grantees' voices in this as well, I hope so. Any questions on that? Dr. Olson, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I would just point out the second component here with the equity focused questions is something you can consider as part of those, but it's also to meet the request from the council last time about reallocating or opening up that $80,000 to equity focused programs. So those are available for your use if you'd like to.
Here's some questions. And discussion points. I hope you look through all of those. And what the goals are, and what kind of, and back to prevent substance use disorder. But the particular focus, because that's been a discussion we've had off and on, is opioid use disorder. That's what we should be funding, is opioid use disorder. Because that's what these are from, is opioid abatement, but it is really hard to have a pure OUD program. So we thought,
I like how it's written.
so that's why that is written the way it is.
I guess really well then. Did you make a motion?
I did, but I didn't, I want Dr. Olson. So yeah, I forgot about principles, because I think we had looked at the.
We've come down the document.
So we went down to the bottom, and I remember that was the last thing we discussed, so I thought, oh, we're here. So anyway, I hope you all will support this. I think it's great work, kudos, and thank you to Dave and Ben for their contribution as well, so.
Team effort. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I
And
second.
Oh. Trustee.
Thank you.
Yeah, or Mayor Mason. I was just gonna add that, I think the questions are good to approve, so I think those are good to have up front. And so as, people are applying, they know those are the questions that we're gonna be asking, so the whole package.
So I guess that my motion was the whole package.
Yeah.
I hope they all read that, and yeah, so
We've got a motion for to approve the application scope of work, proposed goal, principle, and equity considerations. There's a second. Yes, sir.
Would you like, if you go to the application form we've been using, do we want to revise that to incorporate these? Or have them be an attachment or a reference in the application to that document that they get as well? Or do you want those questions right in the app? I kind of like it, putting them right in.
And maybe on top of that is that for this particular call, right, that's going out for the $80,000, or is it something that the council would like to include in all applications?
So let me amend my motion if I might.
Sure.
Trustee Mason and, are you open to me amending the motion? Okay, so, I move to approve the presented goals and guiding principles, and that we move forward to include this in all applications going forward with this document attached to it and those questions embedded into the application. So it's like double.
Gonna work with you, Mayor Pro Tem Mason.
I will second that.
All right. You got that motion? Let's got it. Good. Well done. You got everything in there.
Sorry, Lynn.
No, that's great.
I said I'm good and stuff. I'm just gonna go back and research.
No, well, good clarity is good for staff. Any further conversation?
Great document.
Great document. Hearing none. Anybody oppose that motion? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Very good. All right, next item, John.
Yeah, I propose that we kind of take the next, remember, there's three of them together because they're not changing. Really, the budget that they submit with their proposal application, that's the same, no change. The grant agreement template that we'll use for each and every one. That's really not changing. And then after that is, where are we here? And then there's the two, I guess there's four. There's the 6-month and the final budget report that they have to turn in. None of them are changing. I would hope maybe you could just approve all of them collectively instead of one vote at a time anyways. No, that'll be just. So there's that's the 6-month report. It's the same. They're all basically the same report. And then here's the final with a little more detail in it.
So John, what you're asking is the grant agreement, 6-month budget template, final budget template. Approve those as binding. There's no change from last year.
And the budget that they submit with proposal.
But
Yes, right.
Can I have ask a question? So I think when they did the 6-month report last time, there was a written document that talked about progress towards goals and that sort of thing.
Right.
And the budget. Are you doing both this time or just asking the budget?
And I'll have to admit, I didn't see a form for that, but
Oh,
we
there
did
is.
expect. And so just use the last one if you're okay with that. I don't know. I haven't seen that. I saw what people turned in, but I missed it in our files. So I didn't attach it about what they're supposed to turn in with the 6-month budget.
But I do think that we had voted on kind of a narrative on progress on the goals, so.
Right.
Is that just a?
That was a format. We asked
Yeah.
them basically to show what was going on with their goals. And then there were a couple of questions, like,
there were 3 questions.
yeah.
So that we could do just keep those, including that as of 24, we're just gonna change to 2025.
I'll make that motion to keep all of our forms for so stated and the questions as, and for 2024, keep everything the same for 2025.
I second.
Got a motion, second, any further conversation? Anybody oppose that motion? All right, that passes unanimously. Now, the big one. The capital investment assets policy, right? Is that what we're on? All right, I'll turn it over to you, Commissioner.
So, well, good work for David and Carol and all of us. And I wanted to read off to you, we were waiting to hear back from the Attorney General's office because we had submitted to them, because they kind of put this up for discussion. Because other counties had a concern, should we do capital improvements and what's the asset policy? And so we, like, oh, well, maybe we should think about that, but they kind of put it back on our plates to say, you guys figure this out and send it to us, so. We just, okay, we'll do it, so I wanted to read this to you, from the Jack and the Attorney General's office. So, dear Commissioner Shine McDowell, Tom, Carl, and Lori, happy New Year to you all. Hope this finds you well and warm, but wanted to follow up on the Region 2 drafted capital asset policy that we shared. We shared the policy with the Colorado Opioid Abatement Council Administrative Committee, who indicated they thought the policy was well thought out and could be a good template for other regions as a model for a thoughtful process to ensure funds are used for approved purposes. Members of the committee indicated they're interested in using aspects in their own regions. The COAC plans to develop further guidance in the future regarding capital assets and plans to draw from this policy as a resource. We also reached out internally for some guidance from some internal team members with experience in grant making and procurement. Only questions that came up regarding the process was getting all of the information listed as questions under the criteria and then evaluating that. Though that likely falls outside of this policy. We'd love to hear more from you in the future as you implement this policy. We appreciate you sharing this policy with us and your thoughtfulness in its development. And of course, they want us to share it at a future learning forum. So, well done, everybody. So it looks like we got the thumbs up from the Attorney General's office and that team. So I just feel like, I don't, unless someone has any adjustments, then I don't know if David wants to say anything about this. But thank you, David and Carol, for championing this. You're on mute, David. You're on mute, David.
Only been 5 years. You'd think I'd know how to unmute myself at this point. I didn't have anything to add. I appreciate the feedback from the Attorney General's office. I think we just went through and addressed how we would have normally have done it. So I think it was proper either way. But it's always nice to hear that another attorney's office was appreciative of it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your work. So unless there's major changes or concerns, I would like to move, Mr. Chair, that we move to approve the Larimer Region 2 Capital Asset Investment Policy as written. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further conversation?
Am I right? Let me amend this. Can we approve this and go ahead and add this into the packet for all grantees for this cycle so that this policy is implemented and applies towards this cycle?
Good clarification.
If you, whoever seconded would be open to that amendment. I'm sorry I didn't say that first.
Okay, good, yeah, good. I would like to say this has been something we've been working on for a while, and to get the comments back from the COAC. Thank you, David, for your hard work, and everyone, Commissioner and Carol. This is important because this ensures that funding is following a certain policy protocol. So it's getting back to that transparency. So this is very, very important. I know something that we've been working on. So to get to this stage, I'm excited. So any further comments? All right, let's take it to the vote. Anybody opposed this policy? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Woo-hoo! Got the capital assets policy. And then you've got to do a learning forum.
I just said we. I didn't say me.
You and David could do it. That'd be wonderful. Sorry, David. Nominated you for it. Okay, moving along. We've got one of our favorite parts of this council is getting the 6-month report from one of our grantees. So we have Harvest Farm going to give us their 6-month And of course, you remember at that time, we need to vote on if we want to approve the remaining 6 months funding. So I'll turn it over to Harvest Fund.
Sweet, thank you very much. So I'll start by saying with ours, the way we wrote our PowerPoint and presentation is written as such as if the project is behind it. And that's because I wanted to follow our application. Our application date when we submitted versus when it was approved, as you pointed out very nicely, are different. So per the application, what we said as dates that we would have things completed by is actually different from when it was signed. So I just want to point that out. And that's the way I'll be speaking. Go to the first slide for me. So again, farm basics for you all. I'm sure you've heard it more times than you need to at this point. Long-term recovery program for men experiencing homelessness and battling substance abuse. Currently 72 programmatic beds, 5 beds for our peer support house. And then our goal is to add 8 additional beds for our participants. Next slide. So our goal, what we're wanting to do is add those 8 beds. We want to add more capacity because we feel that we can meet that need. We also know that that need's there. We're currently operating over 95% year round, which in years prior to that was only true when it was cold. Now it's year round, 365 days a year. We're operating at or above 95% capacity. And so we want to be able to bring individuals in who want that care. And we want to be able to continue to operate at no cost for those who are seeking services and support. And so that is our goal. That's why we submitted this application. Next slide. So this is an overview of sort of what we're looking at right now. So what I'm starting with here is, actually, can we go to the next one and I'll go back to this one. I think that'll be better for everybody. So here is a building on our property. This is the main level of that building, referred to as the big house on our property. And what we have here is we have office space where these bedrooms are listed. And then we have a kitchen as well. Our goal, what we want to do is, our plan is to completely renovate that main level and turn it into bedrooms for our participants. In years prior, the basement had been a place where our residents lived, but living in the basement in recovery is not a terribly good fit. Some of you have toured that space as well, and we shouldn't have people living down there, quite frankly. And so what we want to do instead is turn staff office space, as well as a small dining area that we have, into living quarters for men that are also ADA accessible. So we'll be adding additional restroom. We'll be adjusting the office on the far left there as well, shrinking it down so we can still have space for our men. So this will help us add 8 beds on site immediately after it's completed. And then if you can go back to the other slide, thank you. And then what we're going to do instead is we're going to move those staff offices to our basement. So that way we can still have staffing that work. We'd much rather have our staff down there. We'll add additional lighting. We'll get everything up to code and where it should be. But we'd much rather have our staff there in that space and have our residents live on the main level. We're just going to be a better fit for them and they'll be more comfortable. In addition to that, it currently has it listed as a group/break room. At this time, our plan has been updated to split that up into 2 different group recovery rooms. So that way we can have clinicians downstairs, up to 3 working at any given time, and then 2 rooms to offer group therapy for our men, which I think will be a much better fit for them and far more comfortable. But you can see this basement is in rough shape. It's got a really nice checkerboard. You know, you could put a giant chessboard on there, but outside of that, there's not much you can do with it right now. And so we're remodeling and renovating all of that, and that's what we're on target to do. Let's scroll down. All right, so this is a unique space for me to share all this. So I've never done a presentation and set goals and then shared that we've met the goals before completing the project, where we've met most of them. Reason being, though, is with the funding that we received for our intake and some key initiatives that we put in place, we've actually surpassed most of the goals that we established that we would want to complete 1 year post-construction completion, which is nice. It's a nice spot to be in. So you can see right here, our goal was, after adding those 8 additional beds, to increase the number of nights of shelter that we offer. We're nearly there already. Meals served, we're already over because capacity has increased. The need is simply growing in Larimer County. We have helped more men obtain housing than we thought we would, even with adding additional beds. We've helped more men obtain employment. Our graduates numbers went up, as I shared last time, by almost 70%. And then our total program participants is nearly where we want it to be, even by adding those 8 additional beds. So all that to say, I'm very confident that once we do complete the project and expand, we will quickly meet the goals that we have in place. And in fact, I think far exceed anything that we had previously projected, which is great. It's a nice spot to be in for us and for the community as well. To the next one, please. So again, I wrote this based off of the projected timeline we put on our application, not when it was in fact finalized. And so this is just where we are right now. We're currently working with our architects, going through planning, wanting to get everything finalized. We'll start taking contractor bids, select a general contractor. May through June, we'll start working on construction, and then sometime between July and September, we hope to have everything wrapped up. I believe that our 1 year completion based off when everything was signed would be July. And so we're looking to be pretty darn close. As I think many of you know better than me, construction and all the constraints there. Many of them are outside of our control, which we found. We were hoping to be starting sooner, but we did have a major septic failure on our site. And so that became a priority very quickly. We had to do $142,000 septic replacement. And so we really needed to get that done before we start working on anything else to ensure the safety and just well-being of our current residents. Yeah. And then last slide. That's kind of it for now. Questions, comments, concerns? Please.
If I understood right, that basement space is currently pretty much vacant,
Yes.
except for that
So-
one meeting room, that other office space that's just unutilized
So
right
the
now.
basement is completely vacant. So in 2020, we did a remodel on the upstairs of that house to add dormitories. And we started after COVID was completed, we started moving men up into that upper dorm area. So there's nothing down there right now. It's staff offices on the main level, and we're going to move all of those down to the basement and turn that main level into participant dorms.
And then you said, there's a need based on that 95%. Don't keep a wait list, or how does that sort of work with what you
Sure.
see out there?
So we try and avoid keeping a wait list because we know that for those who are seeking help and services, if you don't capitalize on that need and desire to get help and get them in quickly, with the stages of change, that can really wax and wane. So we will keep one, but we tend to max that out at no more than 7 individuals, because anything outside of that, we're looking at 3 to 4 weeks to get someone in, and we'd rather refer them elsewhere or partner with another agency for them to go and get stabilized, get help, and then transfer to us when they're completed with that. Yeah.
I just, curiosity, if I remember correctly, some of our funding was for aseptic,
It is.
but it's separate from the wood. So can you explain the difference of that or what the
Yes.
caused your delay?
Absolutely, yeah. So the one that caused our delay is to our south dormitory and our main office. And so that's for our largest dormitory that we have. That's for 36 men in our south dormitory. The one that I'm describing here in this presentation is for our west dorm, which has a total of 16 men. And then for the big house, we're going to be doing the renovation. That has its own septic system that is separate from the one that failed us and caused all the headaches. Yeah. So yeah, without us having sewer, we have 3 septics on site. At any given time, they can make things very interesting. Yeah. Please.
So this might be, so we'll likely approve the remaining funds.
Mhm.
And then the delay, so do we need to extend the contract time so that we can have their final report after everything's done? Curious. Or how do we do that?
Well, John would probably be the right person to ask, but I know for other grantees, we've done amendments to extend their grant period. I know we did that for CSU.
Yeah, that would make the most sense. July comes and we're still, and it's gonna be August, September, probably do an extension.
We could do that, but yeah, we have one other that's asked for an extension as well.
So we don't have to do it now, we can wait till, or do we do it now?
If we do it now,
You can
it's
do it now.
guaranteed to take even longer.
Exactly right.
Yeah, particularly if I tell the contractors and.
Oh, we have extension.
Yeah, I would never tell them. I would say, no, it's got to be done by July.
Yeah. Either way, whatever you're more comfortable with, we can do it now or we can do it individually.
I think.
I think just a motion is fine.
The contractor,
Confirmed and the dates, I think it would behoove us to wait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what.
Good point.
Sure.
Well, was this part, I may be getting, Scott, was this also part of the piece where with for Coles Rescue, you have the liaison now? I met that individual that's helping folks, and that's helping your number. Would you talk to that a little bit? Because
Sure.
that is actually an extraordinary successful piece of all of this.
Yeah, so that's our separate grant ask. And so that was for staff positions at, bless you, at Harvest Farm as well as at Fort Collins Rescue Mission. And it's through those initiatives and through the working collaboration that we've dramatically increased the number of men coming to us from shelter and increased our overall results that we're seeing here and just the scope of work that we're doing. So that with staff initiatives have contributed to just an immense increase in graduations and overall success of the program that we were hoping or thinking that expansion would contribute to. Now, certainly expecting expansion to increase that significantly as well. We just didn't think it would happen as quickly as it did. We didn't think that the staffing positions and our initiatives to bring more men from shelter and better engage with the community would have such a dramatic impact.
Any questions for Kyle? Motion?
First, a quick question.
Yes, please. I
We just discussed our capital asset policy.
saw that. It's really timely.
I know that wasn't part of your original agreement.
Yeah.
I don't know if you looked at that, what was up there. You know, this is adding value to your property and so is there, you know, any qualms about anything in that policy or you guys aren't planning to move in 2 years or something if there's
No, so I read through it before because it was sent out and then I read through it again today. I think it speaks to having been there for over 10 years, being able to show that you demonstrate and have been providing substance use services. We've been doing that for 35 years. Do we have the infrastructure in place to do expansion? We certainly do. We're having another large project here in Larimer County for a shelter. We're very experienced with building. And so the contractor, even the bids, we'll take bids, but we have a contractor that we work with on almost all of these things. So nothing that I could see at a glance is off for us at all. I think actually we check all of those boxes pretty darn well and very easily also without any changes. Yeah.
Being that this is your 6-month review, I'm not sure that we could, not that
No,
we
I-
don't meet that criteria.
Sure.
But we couldn't hold them to.
No,
that.
I'm not asking.
Okay.
I was just curious because this is kind of one of the reasons we had to look at this
Yes.
policy.
Because that-
I just wanted to ask if they thought that was, made them squeamish or they felt that was,
No.
appropriate.
You can even call it the Harvest Farm policy if you need to. And let everyone know that comes down the road that it's because of us. But no, I saw in there too that there was a piece that I think was very wise about ensuring that it stays and is continued to be used for this purpose years down the road. I think that makes a lot of sense because whether an agency is a nonprofit or for profit, if you do it and then 3 months later move all the chess pieces, that's not very beneficial. And so for us, no, there's no plans of moving, shutting down, changing, doing anything like that. We're always growing and expanding and updating. But I think the question is capacity of men in the program and see that changing.
Well, I have to say, I didn't say Harvest Farms, but I just said, yeah, we're getting money to a septic system and hurts their head, goes, what?
Yeah.
And so, because they're like, oh, we're wondering about this building, like, oh, well, we get money for a septic system, so that certainly got everyone's attention. I don't think, I'm not asking you to do that, I just was kind of curious because this is the policy, but I will make the motion to approve the 6-month report and release the next funds, I must say tranche, but I guess just the next budget of the 6 month, the next 6 months of funds.
I'll second that. And I will say, we did also purchase this car, so there's,
Yeah.
they're not the
Yeah.
only.
No, I don't, I
Hey,
know
for
they're
the
not.
septic, I know they talk about rural communities. It's a great way to say that you're collaborating with rural communities to meet their needs that we do,
Perfect.
that aren't there in the city.
That's a good point, but we know that one's gonna stay in service until it's run into the ground. So
Well, and you got a direct link to public health because they're actually on-site wastewater treatment systems. That's the fancy name that we permit them and expect.
That's another,
Make
right?
sure our groundwater doesn't. family.
Right, that's another connection, so that's good.
I did want to point out that, and kudos that, those funds given to, the mission, having that staff, extended staff time there really shows your numbers, like you
Yeah.
said already, hitting your goals. So I'm excited to see what the beds are done and the continued, staff hours down at, the mission, that, things will just explode and
Yeah.
fill all those, so.
Yeah, you and me both. And I think with the building of the new shelter, for those building and overseeing it's a lot of work to do all these both at the same time, but I think what we'll see at the end of it will be pretty remarkable, what we're able to do. So I'm clear if I can ask a question. So be approved today and then we'll come back at the 1 year. And if we're at that point, we'll be building or should be. If it's not completed, though, I'll simply present that and request for an extension of whatever is reasonable. So I'm communicating to my supervisor appropriately.
And I would communicate with John as things are like.
Okay.
We'll check in as we get to the 5-6 months. Or the 11-12 months, shall we say.
Okay, perfect.
And I do just want to piggyback up, Tricia. When you look at, I'm learning so much about case management and liaisoning and those things. And that, how important that is. Because what Kyle shared with me when I got to meet the gentleman that's doing the great work is that it would be, hey, we've got this recovery center, we got Harvest Farm at the shelter. And some folks would be interested, but you know, they're in chaos and it's hard. Well, now the gentleman says, well, let me take you there. Let me get you information. And they take them there. They sit them down. They go over what they do. Versus just, hey, you want to go over there? Or, hey, have you thought about this? So there's a lot more care, thought, and empathy into this. And then when I saw this working, I'm like, wow, that's case management. That's where it really, you get, when someone's in that state, and you really sit down with them and go over what the options are and the benefits, it seemed like you guys were getting a lot more folks taking advantage of the program than prior because of that direct case management.
Significant increase. Well, you put yourself in the position of someone experiencing homelessness and battling addiction and a case manager can't show them or doesn't have experience with it, saying, hey, there's this farm in Wellington you can go to. I don't know if it's appealing or perhaps a little nerve wracking, right? How a bad movie starts, someone. And so, yeah, giving them the opportunity. And then we've also had Fort Collins Rescue Mission staff do regular tours. They'll just bring up a group of men and say, hey, come out, see it. If you like it, let's talk about it today. And if you don't, now you know it's an option that's available to you. But at least that fear is gone of the unknown.
Fantastic stuff. We got a motion in a second. Any further conversation? Anybody oppose that motion? Passes unanimously. Great work.
Thank you guys very much.
Harvest Farm. Oh, look at us here at the jury meeting, but before we go there, I just want to remind us, next month, we're doing a lot of grant work. I mean, John, that's the plan.
Right, we're hoping people to submit their proposals and applications and.
So we'll have that all on the agenda for March or for February and potentially March as well.
A lot of these, we're kind of grouping them all together now, but they kind of happened over time. So some of them are ending sooner and some are ending not maybe till June. And so do you really want to hear 10 proposals in February?
Or by Mary, wait, space them out because we have time.
Space them out maybe based on who's ending first.
Yep.
Yeah,
Something like that, just.
I would think that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
I think prioritizing which ones are ending first and kind of thinking how we can talk, you know,
Yeah.
and agendas, but I think certainly also, I think it's also we get so much information, it's also fair to the grantees if we're not like worn out from who's number one versus number 10. And I think that's not fair. It'd be great if we were maybe not, you know, as worn out from listening to all the proposals and try to keep all the numbers straight. So That's why I thought it was great when we did not asking the questions and just had the presentations and got those done so we could. So I think that it sounds proactive.
We'll prioritize them,
Yeah.
spread them out based upon their need, their timing.
Not that you want to take 6 months to do it, but
No.
maybe only 2 months instead of just all at once.
Yeah, February, March, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Now, do we have an open enrollment type and then a date for closure for these to come in? So everybody knows they need to get them in by a certain time, or
That's a good question.
that might be helpful
Well,
to
what
know.
Liv and I always say, give it to us in time so we can get it in the packet. And so we could set that same date for everybody. And maybe we could even divide them in a group. If you're in that first tranche that we decide you're running out first, we could give them a date, and then the other people we could say the following month. Just, we could look at that and just consider that if that sounds logical, you know.
I think it'd be helpful to have an end date, so that way. I know just with town government, it's better to have dates for end dates
Yeah.
for applicants, so they know not to procrastinate and, flood us with 10 of them in March.
We
or
we
whatever.
typically ask for stuff by Tuesday, the week before our meeting. Or
But I
Wednesday.
think what you're saying is that we're not getting applications all year long. that
Right.
We're
We don't do that.
Yeah,
That's not
right.
how we're structured.
but I thought if we had, I think you're asking if we say
Specific dates,
applications open
open
on
date.
January
close
first,
date.
and we're going to accept them for this next cycle until the first or something, because we're not there yet, so.
Or it just clarifies for the grantees, that there
If
is.
you empower us, we'll get those dates to meet the spirit of what you're asking for. How's that? So it'll be sometime, not March 31st, but maybe middle of March. We'll come up with.
I would like to see that.
Okay,
I just want to make a note of caution on that, I might, Mr. Chair, we still haven't really figured out what we're gonna do with that equity, it's about 160 now. So I was hoping that maybe we all can
We'll
go to bed and dream about it, so.
We can have that as actually a good point. We'll make sure that's on the agenda as well. Any further conversation or move to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Anybody oppose that? All right. Meeting's adjourned at 3:23. Thank you, everyone. Great work.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
because I have you.
I mean,